All right, now we're going to finish up our study of the organelles. So we'll start by talking about some more organelles that can be found in both plants and animals, and then we'll finish up with some that are only found in one or the other, so ways of telling the difference between the two. We'll start with the cell membrane, also known as the plasma membrane, also known as the phospholipid bilayer. Remember, this is one of those things that we said every single cell in existence, no matter what type of cell it is, has a cell membrane. So both prokaryotes and eukaryotes have a cell membrane. The cell membrane kind of acts like the skin of the cell. It controls what can enter and what can leave. It keeps the environment separate from the actual cell. So going back to our city analogy, the cell membrane would be like a city wall that determines what can enter and leave. Okay. So the plasma membrane is made up mostly of lipids. You can see here in the picture the wall of heads with two tails. We'll talk more about the cell membrane in a few days, but I also want you to see what else is in it. It also has proteins stuck in it. That's what these big blobs are. These are known as transport proteins. They act as doorways or gates that allow things, specific things, to enter and leave. They are proteins. And remember, what is the most important thing about a protein? Its shape. There's also cholesterol in here. Cholesterol helps give it flexibility. The cytoskeleton. These are made out of protein. They're long protein tubes, and there are 3 types. They help provide the cell with shape and some movement. Now, in most pictures we look at in cells, they look like there's a lot of empty space that's just filled up with cytoplasm. But that's actually simplistic. It's reducing it to make it something easy for us to study. In reality, almost every single little tiny bit of space inside the cell is taken up by something, including the cytoskeleton. So you can see here, all this empty white space would be cytoplasm. But all spread throughout that cytoplasm are cytoskeleton. It helps to hold these organelles in place so that they're not floating around too much in the cytoplasm. One type of cytoskeleton is called actin. Actin is long, thin proteins that can be used as highways, and proteins can walk on them to help move materials throughout the cell, to help carry those vesicles around the cell to get them to the proper places. The second type of cytoskeleton is microtubules. These are really important when a cell gets ready to divide, and they're also used to transmit electrical signals between the brain and the rest of your body. These are long, thin tubes arranged in a circle. They're kind of like a straw because it's hollow in the center. And our third type of cytoskeleton are intermediate filaments. These are a blend of different types of proteins that come together, and some of these will actually extend outside of the cell membrane, and they can be used for communication between cells and for cellular recognition. So the body can make sure, hey, this cell is healthy and it belongs here. Next, we're going to talk about vacuoles. Vacuoles is a place where you can tell the difference between plants and animals. Animals have lots of little small vacuoles, while plants have one giant vacuole called the central vacuole. The job of a vacuole is to act as a storage container. It's going to store mostly water, but it can also store some dissolved particles such as sugars and minerals that you may need later. Okay? But vacuoles are mostly a storage container for water. Then there are some special vacuoles called contractile vacuoles. Unicellular animals can use them as a form of movement. So it's a vacuole that when it fills up with water, the unicellular animal can squeeze it small real fast and squirt the water out like a squirt gun. And so it jets it forward. So it'll fill up with water, contract, and squirt forward. Fill up with water, contract, and squirt forward. Another way to tell the difference between plant and animal cells is a cell wall. Cell walls are an extra layer on the outside of the cell membrane that provides additional support. And it's what makes plant cells rigid. Okay? So cell walls are not found in animal cells. They're found in plants and in some bacteria cells. And it's made from cellulose. What is cellulose? It ends in ose, so it's a sugar. And is also commonly known as fiber. So when they tell you you need more fiber in your diet, that's what they mean. You need to eat some more cell wall. Centrioles is another special organelle. Centrioles are the only organelle that is found in animal cells only. So if you see a centriole, that's your clue that it is definitely an animal cell. Centrioles are cylindrical and they hang out near the nucleus. And for most of the cell's life, that's all they do. They just hang out in the nucleus doing absolutely nothing. They only come into play when an animal cell gets ready to divide to make more cells. We'll talk about that in an upcoming unit, okay? But just know that centrioles are used in cell division and they are only in animal cells.